Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Yes 101's Visual Radio. Bringing you the news, I'm Vinuji Seneviratna. Let's take a look at your local news. The United States has announced a reduction in tariffs on goods imported from Sri Lanka to 20%. The White House confirmed that President Donald Trump signed the relevant executive order, which also includes tariff revisions for 40 other countries. The order will take effect on 7th of August, 7 days after its signing. Secretary to the Treasury Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma says that US tariffs won't disrupt IMF commitments. He stated this during a media briefing held today.
The 20% tariff was not in place when we negotiated the IMF deal. Now we are in an IMF deal. Do you think we will have to renegotiate the IMF deal because of the disturbance due to 20% tariff?
Sri Lanka has entered into an IMF program, which we are all aware, and there are certain parameters that we need to comply as a nation. So wherever there are necessities that if we see such requirements, we are open to discuss with all the stakeholders involved in this discussion. We believe we are not alone. We are getting the blessings of other nations, our multilateral partners who are working with us. As I mentioned, industries, businesses, we are in it together. So it's our collective obligation and duty to seek support from anyone that we seems deemed necessary for us to succeed as a country. Instead of cornering ourselves into a location, wherever possible, seek support from everyone and engage them in the discussions and negotiations to see how can we succeed in this endeavor and how can we reduce the rate down further from where we are. So there are options and possibilities. That's why we will continue to engage with all those parties to ensure, as a country, we walk into tomorrow victoriously. Thank you very much for your attention and participation.
That was the Secretary to the Treasury, Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma. Now let's take a look at more local news. Deflation eases in July as Sri Lanka adjusts toward inflation target. Sri Lanka's deflationary trend continued to ease for the 5th consecutive month in July 2025, with the Colombo Consumer Price Index recording a year-on-year headline deflation of 0.3% compared to 0.6% in June, according to the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Food inflation moderated significantly to 1.5% in July from 4.3% in June, while non-food deflation eased to 1.2%, down from 2.8% the previous month. On a month-on-month basis, the CCPI declined by 0.23%, with the food category contributing negative 0.86 percentage points and the non-food category contributing positive 0.63 percentage points. Meanwhile, core inflation, which reflects underlying price trends excluding volatile items, inched up to 1.6% in July from 1.5% in June. The central bank noted that the temporary deflationary phase experienced since September 2024 is nearing its end. Inflation is expected to gradually accelerate towards the 5% target, supported by appropriate policy measures.
International news.
In news overseas, Hours before a deadline to strike trade deals, the White House released new levies for dozens of countries which will come into effect on Thursday. Canada's tariff, which rose from 25% to 35%, kicked in today, but most Canadian goods will be exempt due to an existing trade treaty. Higher tariffs for Mexico have been paused for another 90 days. US President Donald Trump first announced his tariff plan in April, sending chaos rippling through the world economy. But he paused it so countries could negotiate new trade deals which include the UK and EU.
Sports news.
Finally, onto a sports update. Louis Rees-Zammit is leaving the NFL to return to playing rugby union. The decision comes 18 months after the 24-year-old initially quit rugby to pursue a career playing American football. After participating in the NFL's international player pathway, Rees-Zammit was initially signed to the Kansas City Chiefs but was cut after failing to impress during preseason appearances in 2024. And that's a wrap of this edition of Yes 101's Visual Radio. Thank you for watching.